Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the bell to get notified whenever we drop a new episode every Monday. This episode and the whole season of the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Whether you like it mild or hot, chunky or cantina style, the people over at Two Men have you covered. I know what you're asking, Zach. Why Two Men in a Garden? They're a 100% St. Louis company. Not only are they local, they've opened up their production facility to local food entrepreneurs. They love St. Louis the way I do. All of their products you can get at any local grocery store or online at twomeninthegarden.com, or follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa. That's on Instagram and Twitter. Peter. We got some stuff to talk about here.
We do. I was a little worried about your long pause there. I thought you were just going to get up and walk away from the mic. This would be like your Richie Tenenbaum moment. Just right in the heat of the action, just taking your socks off, sitting down, just, having a nap.
I mean, that's about as accurate of a portrayal as my brain activity has gone in the past couple of days. I really don't. I don't understand this team. I think we've been conditioned. I mean, even prior to Rick Majerus arriving at St. Louis University, Soderberg's team's always played an intelligent brand of basketball, a very X's and O's brand of basketball under Majerus. Obviously a true genius of the game, brought in incredibly, everything was kind of structured in a way to make that team successful. And then, I mean, even under Cruz, man, like I think I tweeted it out. I'm like, dude, at least those dudes understood the game, and playing as a team. At least they lost as a team, man.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there's just not an identity to the way they play. Like we've talked a lot about Team Blue as an identity and what that may or may not mean. But on the floor, I don't know who this team is. And that you could never say that about SLU in the first, bulk of the first several years of Travis Ford's time here, because you had people like Jordan Goodwin, Hassan French. We were tough. We defended. We rebounded. This team played hard. Like nobody, even at times when it was ugly, they were playing hard out there. And I just don't know what the identity of this team is. It's just not coming together, and it's certainly not coming together in a consistent way.
Yeah, I think I said I kind of went out of pocket on the post-game spaces. And I think, and I want to clarify, is that it's so baffling to me that the mental errors and just inexplicable mistakes. There's like point shaving isn't out of the realm of like that's how confused I am right now. Is that I can't find anything else like to point out with this team and be like, this is why we can't win games.
There's no consistency from game to game. There's no consistency within games. In this set of games that we're going to talk about tonight, we actually saw stretches where SLU played excellent offense for a while and then just abandoned it or were taken out of it. Yeah. We saw times where they were pretty tight on defense and there was no consistency. I don't know what it is. They also, once again, have shown kind of their worst tendencies to kind of stop moving the ball on offense and then, just folding defensively, letting pressure from a Rhode crowd, for example, get to them, or just a complete inability to match the energy of another team. And maybe we should just get into it. Like let's start with
Yeah.
this Fordham game.
Yeah. And I think, first of all, I mean, the lead up to this game, you could just feel Fordham was pulling out all the stops for this one.
Yeah.
Whether it be on the court, off the court, this was their marquee game of the year. They knew they had a chance to make a statement in conference, and yeah, so much energy in the building, from their team. I literally didn't know that anyone on Twitter wasn't a Fordham fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Tony Reale went there, but I didn't know like they actually had like vocal fans.
Yeah, an actual fan base.
Yes.
It's funny. Yeah, I mean they were really
Is it just that hard to get into the Bronx? Like, nobody wants to get on the train unless they're winning. Like, I don't know.
well, it's not a big school. It's a pretty good academic school, so it's like SLU. It's Jesuit, right? Or it's at least Catholic.
Who are you talking
Yeah,
to?
it's
I haven't been
Jesuit.
to church. I don't remember what day of the week it's on.
But it's smaller than SLU. It's hard to get into. I feel like it's a relatively small community within the biggest city in North America. So it's kind of weird that way. But you and I goofing around on A10 Twitter for several years now, they're the ones you just never run into, like as not good as a lot of these other teams are, their people are still around. Like there's a presence for everybody. And I've just never run into Fordham people. And man, they came out of the woodwork for this one. Some of that pushed by the school itself, the athletic department, really trying to get people out, fill the gym up. Because as you say, this was a big game for them. And the way the A10 has kind of structured the schedule this year, a lot of the teams that they thought were going to be the best, they put them against each other, right? So we played Dayton twice, we played Davidson twice, we play Loyola. That didn't pan out. We play them twice. We play VCU twice. So they kind of tried to cluster the best teams together. So a lot of these other teams in the bottom half, bottom third, or what were thought to be, they're only getting those teams once, and it may or may not be at home, right? So when a SLU or a VCU or a Dayton comes to town, it's a big deal. And when you've got a small gym, even though you're a little bit smaller community, it still is easier to fill Rose Hill up than Chaffetz. And so yeah, we saw a lot of that in the lead up to this
one. Collins in this one went to the bench really early, 9.5 minutes to play in the first half with his second foul. And I think this was the fatal flaw in Travis Ford's, not the fatal flaw. I think this is a problem. You're up 9. A good friend of the show said this to me before the game when we talked about the Fordham, the Fordham game and Collins going to the bench with 2 fouls. How many times has Collins gone to the bench with 2 fouls and then finished with 3?
Right.
like
right.
Why? There's no point. Just you're up 9. Finish them off. You saw it against Dayton. Fordham folded when they pushed the lead. Billikens had that chance. Stop taking momentum away for 2 fouls on Yuri Collins especially when you're up 9. I mean, it's almost like I'm trying to come up with the words for it, but it's playing to not lose.
Right.
Instead of just going for the jugular and trying to win it. You certainly can win it in the first half against the mediocre members of this conference. And it feels like in all the games, and we can get into it about with the VCU game, because it happened again, but without fouls. It just seems like we don't try to extend runs.
And so it wasn't a catastrophe in this game, right? We still go into halftime up 5. I don't think we've actually said the score of this game on Tuesday the 31st, where we lost 75-65 at Fordham, but we went into half up 36-31. So we're still up 5 even without him, right? But I think you're right. Like if this at halftime, is a 9-point lead. Let's say we had just maintained the lead with Yuri still out there, right? If we go into half up 9, it feels a lot different in that gym, I think, than 5, and they've spent the last couple minutes shrinking the lead, threatening a little bit, right? So they really feel like they're still in this thing going into halftime. They've got more momentum than SLU, and I think that is a factor here.
Yeah, it really is. And when you allow the lead to stay at a smaller margin, turnovers again become that much bigger. Each one is bigger.
Yeah.
Fordham pressed us hard and it got to us. And I think that was almost it ended up not being prophetic for the VCU game, but I really don't understand what our plan is to deal with the pressure. We know it's coming, and yet
Right.
it's always make sure you get the ball in bounds, and then go ahead, whatever you want to do, just get it up the court. Whenever under 10 seconds you can get up the court, go ahead. And that's ridiculous. You're not only are you wasting time on offense, but you're making Yuri Collins expend energy. Can one, and I yelled it about 5 times against VCU. One time, set me a backcourt ball screen. One time.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, their whole strategy here was to take Collins out, right? I mean, they're face guarding him all the way up the floor. It was a little confusing to me. Well, I do want to get back to their pressure for a second, because 14 steals out of turnover or out of Fordham is kind of a shocking number. Like we've never seen that brand of Fordham since we've joined the A10. 14 steals. That's just not something I would have expected at all. I mean, Ergo is clearly a different coach than what they've had previously. And as brief as he was there, I really like Neptune too. But man, did he have these guys playing energetic, aggressive basketball for 40 minutes. Back to Collins, for a while in this game, I'm just watching him like, what is he doing? Like, why does he look so lethargic? Why does he look so, like, is he sick? Like, I was legitimately confused. Like, I knew they were guarding him closely. I knew they were trying to like isolate him and keep the ball out of his hands. But like, my God, it looked like he just went, oh, okay, you're going to guard me like that? Fine. I don't know if I'm being too hard on him here,
I
but
don't think
he allowed them to completely take him out of the game. And he finishes the game with 1 assist and 4 turnovers. And I just don't understand. You're right. Like set him screens in the backcourt. Like figure something out. Don't just have him pout, like walking up on the side, down the sideline pouting.
And I mean, do you think that some of that pouting was why he got taken out with 2 fouls and never put back in? Because I mean, you can put him back in. 5 minutes left to go in the half. Put him back in.
We've seen games where at that point in the game, he's already got 6 or 7 assists. And in this one, he's got 1. Did he? I think he had it already by that point. No, maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't have any assists in the first half, now that I'm thinking of it. So maybe they thought, well, we'll just take him out and try something different and play it conservative with 2 fouls, because it just hasn't worked with him in there. And let's see what Fordham throws at us if we've got Hughes, or if we've got just a different combination of players in there instead of Collins. But I think it also is worth noting that they did have Moore and then Quisenberry. They both picked up their second. It was after Collins, and one of them, I think Quisenberry's, was just with a couple minutes left in the half. But to me, that's even more of a reason to put Collins back in. And you're either forcing Fordham to play one or both of those guys with 2 fouls, or you're taking advantage of possibly a mismatch when you've got Collins in there without Quisenberry. So yeah, we keep circling back to that. In hindsight's 2020, but I just did not see SLU adjust to him being taken out of the game. And then honestly, we didn't give Hughes a whole lot of minutes here either. And
he just I felt like when he was in the game, he kind of felt overwhelmed by Fordham as well. And I think we'll get to the next game as well. But, I think there's a lot in this one questioning the offensive scheme and what happened in the final 10 minutes or so, with basically everyone going out of pocket. 1v1. I know we were in the Bronx, but we're not playing at the Rucker. It's, what's the offensive scheme? There's no ball movement, no 3-point shooting, absolute abhorrent decision-making. I mean, Perkins driving 5 times in a row. Yuri Collins has a man open for 3. Everyone and their mom saw it. And wait, no, was that VCU? The one that hit underneath the backboard.
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's the same
the
story in
same,
both
yeah.
games.
It's an evergreen statement.
Right.
Yuri Collins driving into the trees, has a guy open and doesn't find him. Pickett was just terrible. Again, same thing as Javante, and Gibson had, made his one shot, wasn't able to get open, which is insane. I don't know.
I think it's worth noting just to kind of underline the lack of ball movement in this one. SLU has 5 assists and 16 turnovers, but maybe even more telling, 9 3-point attempts, 9 in an entire game. And this is another year where, like, coming into the season, Ford is saying, like, we're going to shoot more threes this year.
Yeah.
We've got the personnel, and all those guys are still on the roster. The guy we lost to injury, Fred Thatch, was not our 3-point shooter. All the shooters are still out there. 9 3-point attempts. I mean,
the one thing I will say about that is that we did get everything we wanted in the first half inside. I mean, Okoro was an absolute monster. His first half was 13-7, 6-6 from the field. Third foul, 11 minutes left in the second.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one you get, I guess. I didn't love it. Again, I think there was a lot of talk about how handling the foul situation was this great move by Ford. And was it an accident that we still won those games? I mean, it's almost kind of like spray and pray, I guess. Like, hey, take them out and hope that we can do it. And if we do it, we look good. If we don't, we look like shit. So
yeah, I don't. I mean, I think that winning streak papered over a lot of problems. I think we only touched on it briefly in the show, that we weren't necessarily playing great basketball in those games. We were pulling out wins, but you're talking about close wins over teams like George Washington. That's not confidence inspiring stuff. Like, those are teams you're supposed to beat by double digits.
This is another night with low energy. You mentioned Yuri Collins, but I mean, everybody was kind of lethargic. We faced adversity on the road and we kind of folded. It was, kind of what you expected out of those early season Ford teams. The opposite, meaning, the other team would pressure the other team and they would fold. And again, Fordham, credit to them. They brought the energy, and I mean, like, there was
it felt a lot like the SIUE game to me. After every time they would kind of chip away at a lead, or in this case, take the lead and then start extending the lead, I'm looking at our bench and I'm looking at their bench. I'm looking at their guys on the court. I'm looking at our guys on the court. And the body language was night and day. It was night and day. I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like Fordham is written as like the underdog in a script, and they want to make SLU the favorite who's easy to root against. So you would show them behaving like SLU did on the bench and on the court, and just like not caring, not playing as a team, not showing, not demonstrating that you are feeling any emotion whatsoever. And meanwhile, Fordham's hitting shots, congratulating one another. Their bench is constantly on their feet. They played with so much energy, and you saw it. Quisenberry had 27 in this game. He was awesome. Moore had 20. Well, like, what a find that guy is. And they were in Slew's heads all night. Like those guys, they frustrated our guards to no end. It was incredible to watch. They never at any point in this game let off the gas.
Hargrove had good minutes in this one. The only player who didn't actively stink.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a big factor either.
He was fine.
Yeah, just trying to find anything positive to talk about this game is hard.
Yeah,
it was a game where I truly believe we lost this one. And Fordham didn't win it. I mean, how many runs of both teams not scoring were there? Too many runs of possessions where Fordham was missing and then we'd come down and turn it over, or take a bad shot, or you have so many opportunities to extend your lead and you just refuse to understand time and score. That's become my biggest issue, is that none of them know about time and score.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. You look once again, look at their body language, and you would never know what juncture of the game it is. You just wouldn't. You'd think like, okay, well, the way they look right now, they've got a nice lead and we're heading into halftime.
Yeah.
Like, nope.
They don't
we've
have
got 3 minutes left.
This is one of those games where you have to have a team that's like, all right, it's the Billikens versus everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't that team.
I do circle back to some of the things that we heard about this team coming into the year. Was there wasn't much vocal leadership. We've got guys who are smart and skilled, know what they're doing out there, but it's a lot of like guys who are a little more introverted, a little quieter about the way they go about their game. And that's fine, but that can't be all of your guys. That can't be your leaders, like you do need a Jordan Goodwin getting in dudes' faces and good and bad, holding them accountable, but also like making them realize like when they've done something good, keeping the energy level high. You just don't see any of that.
No. Fordham, though, having a historic season.
Yeah.
18th win of the season. They lost today to somebody.
Richmond.
Yep. Thank you. The first time they've had 18 at all in a season since 2007. They finished with that number. And then 1992 was the last time before that they had 18, and they got the NCAA tournament appearance. They had 25 wins in 91, but missed the tournament. That's crazy. We'll see what happens with them down the stretch, but that number could extend. This one, I think this next game broke me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, this was a tough one, and it was a tougher test, but we knew it was a big deal. We got the sellout in Chaffetz, despite coming off the bad game at Fordham. I think people wanted to give this team another try, another push, and we just didn't deliver.
I hate these 6 o'clock starts. They're bad vibes all the way around.
I do too. I like later starts, so I can at least watch some of the game without my kids still awake. There's something about going into the arena, the students arriving less than 30 minutes before the game. Not even, I would venture to say less than half the arena was full at tip off. It was a very late arriving crowd, and it just sets the tone. It's interesting because we're scheduled for an 8 o'clock tip Central Time at Dayton. And yes,
right, or a 7 o'clock Central.
Sorry, it's a 7 o'clock tip because it's 8 o'clock here and on the Eastern time. Yeah,
but so it doesn't make sense to me. Why isn't it a 7 o'clock tip for the game at Dayton? And then they make it a 6 o'clock game here, but it's an 8 o'clock game when it's there. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why not flip that around so that the home team can get their fans in the game regardless? Some of that might have to do with TV. No, I agree. But if you're going to if it's Friday 10 on both cases, like
Right.
The hell. First half, it was, I mean, I don't understand it. We would look outstanding, and then terrible, then amazing again. Pete, I think you can kind of expand on that further, because I, again, at a loss for words.
So this is our 73-65 loss against VCU on Friday the 3rd. And I think you're referring to, I think the best analogy that I could come up with, which I put on Twitter, was that it was like watching like a title fight in the WWE, like one of those like 23-minute matches. And you've got these two guys, huge, gigantic athletic guys who are clearly exhausted the entire time, but then they'll get up and do something amazing after lying on the mat and getting dragged around for 3 minutes. And it was just like,
big comebacks. It's like the tag team partners slamming on the rope.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Buckle, and the major comeback, the hulking up, or the,
right.
It was just insane.
It's incredible. And we saw stretches of some of the best offense we've seen all season, and then they'd follow it up with just 3 or 4 complete wasted possessions in a row. And you're just like, where is this coming from? And that was just in the first half. The game was pretty close most of the time, right? Like there were 16 lead changes in this game, but unfortunately, once again, it just kind of ended with a late meltdown. SLU couldn't get a stop, and then felt right back into that ISO offense we talked about in Fordham. You saw things like Collins going 1-on-3, taking bad layups, guys turning it over, and that fluid offense that we saw in stretches in this game just completely disappeared, leaving VCU with the keys.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the moves with substitutions outside of the foul subs was an issue, because again, we go back to Yuri Collins being taken out of the game, and I think we were up like 6 or on a run, and Travis puts Yuri on the bench. Like, keep going, like, play to win the game. I know it's a classic, like, you play to win the game. You don't play to hold on to a lead. Like, stop that. He's done. Travis has kind of done that for a long time here.
And we should be fair. That was really only once, because Yuri did wind up playing like 39 minutes in this game. And was he taken out in ways? Sure. He has 4 points on 2 of 8 shooting, doesn't draw any fouls. And he does wind up with his usual 11 assists, 4 turnovers here. He got 3 steals, because there were times in this game where he was great. He was great reading their offense. And look, VCU, as much as we know them as a team that creates a lot of turnovers, they turn it over a lot too. Mm-hmm. There was opportunity, and SLU, for a time, was seizing upon that. There was a long stretch in here. I think VCU only had 4 turnovers in the first half, but then they wound up having 6 in like the first 6 or 7 minutes of the second half. SLU was all over them. And once again, you just get away from that, right? Like, they didn't have, after that first 6 to 8 minutes where they had 6 turnovers, they didn't turn it over again the rest of the game. And that was just, just again, frustrating to see.
Yeah, and again, it was really just the same thing as against Fordham, except with a different player. In Fordham, there was a few plays where Franco didn't see a guy coming and had the ball stolen twice. And then in this one, it's Yuri Collins.
Right.
I mean, he lost the ball twice. It's just, these guys have been playing basketball too long, and are too talented to make these kind of mental mistakes. And Travis Ford talked about it. And I think we should get into that eventually. But I thought the Billikens were good on defense for a lot of stretches, and then Ace Baldwin decided to take over.
Yeah, I mean, he had himself a career night. It was something to see. 37 points in this one on just 15 field goal attempts. He was 9 of 9 from the line, and I don't think glanced the rim on any of those free throws. But he couldn't miss from the field either. SLU seemed kind of content letting him shoot for a while in the first half, but then even when they started to put more pressure on him, he was just making whatever he threw up there. Whether he was going left, right, fading away, but man, he as much as we want to rip on SLU here, I mean, he had one of those nights. He just did.
Yeah, Pickett again had a really just a brutal game. That flagrant was the absolute dagger. I mean, we can argue all day whether or not it's actually flagrant. I could not believe they looked at it. But you just have to be smarter than that.
You can't do that. Yeah, he didn't mean to do it, but that was a football move that he laid into that guy, just basically tackled him. And yeah, he was horrible against Fordham, and that was the case again today. I just, it was just sloppy, that particular play. VCU converted, hit both of those free throws, and then got the ball back, and you just knew like that was it. There was no coming back from that. At the other, we had just on the prior possession, I think we had turned it over, right? Like we turned it over and then ended up with that, or were we just coming off of? No, sorry, we were down 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had just made one. And anyway, once they went up 7 and then got the ball back, I just knew,
Again, this is one of those moments where you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, why?
Right.
Why? That's one of those moments where you're like, what is going on here? There's something a little more nefarious. You start to get in your little tinfoil hat mindset.
Well, I mean, and certainly it's a game that begs explanation, right? Because like a lot of times you play a team like VCU and you would love to say, oh, it was the turnover disparity or there was the offensive rebounding that we stunk in this game. But VCU, they only ended up with 4 more field goal attempts than SLU in the game. They forced 4 more turnovers than SLU did, not surprising. And they got 4 more offensive rebounds. For a while in the first half, it looked like those numbers were going to be a lot worse. So those are things that obviously didn't help SLU, but they're not like quote unquote the story of what happened in this game, right? I mean, like there were a lot of other reasons that this didn't go well. Those were contributing factors, but that wasn't it.
Gibson Jimerson, one of the true bright spots for most of this game, I think. A great first half, 4 or 5 from 3. But quiet in the second half. Had over 10 minutes without a shot attempt, and second half just wasn't there.
No, they did a better job of kind of staying on him, I want to say, in the second half. But at the same time, we saw SLU getting out of the kind of offense that feeds him, right? I mean, like, think about how many threes we hit, and I 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 in the first half where we made not 1 but 2 extra passes, right? Sincere Parker passed up a good look to give Jimerson a wide open look with unlimited time and space, and he hit it. And there were other times Perkins hit another one like that. We moved the ball around and it eventually wound up in the hands of a shooter. And often that was Gibson Jimerson, 4 out of 5 in the first half. And then in the second half, he did miss a few, but he didn't have quite as clean a looks. And then he didn't get an attempt for a while, so it was a while before he got cooking again in the second half, but it was too little too late by then. I think he went, after those initial misses in the beginning of the second half, I think he went about 10 minutes without a shot attempt, and he didn't hit a 3 again until it was under 30 seconds left. So it was a good performance by him overall, but the offense was kind of leaning on him in this game, and then they stopped getting him the ball. So when he stopped scoring, SLU stopped scoring.
Yeah. Forrester, I think we both really appreciated what he brought in this game, but he got into foul trouble, and I think I don't necessarily think he fouled on a couple of those, but them's the breaks. And one thing was the foul disparity in this game, though. I mean, look, you still had a chance to go and win this game, but I mean, I think VCU had 2 fouls in the second half up until about like 6 minutes to play. And then they just started calling like the most that is the worst thing in college basketball. Actually, basketball in general. The foul evening that are just inconsequential calls when every foul against you has been of consequence. It's
Right.
infuriating.
Now that it's garbage time, we can even this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Infuriating.
Yeah, there's a human element there, and it's all the more frustrating in this game because you're like, I don't know, say what you will about VCU's performance, they probably committed more than 2 fouls in the first 15 minutes of that second half. They don't play quite that cleanly. I don't think that's the deciding factor here, but clearly this was more of a Forrester game than an Okoro game, whereas the Fordham game was the opposite. I wouldn't be upset if both of them, wanted to have a good game on the same night, but they were both kind of feeling the foul pressure a little bit here. I don't know. The matchup was working for Jake early on. It's just a shame that the whistles didn't go his way.
What are we gonna do with Yuri Collins? I just, the guy. I think I talked about this, in the preseason. What happens if Yuri Collins, isn't able to? What if this team plays poorly? What if Yuri Collins plays poorly? He tried to leave. Where do SLU fans put him in their, on their shit list or, still on their good graces?
He had look, he had and arguably still has every opportunity to make himself a true legend in this program, right? A lot of what doesn't work in some of these games is on him. The ball's in his hands. The offense runs through him. He's the ultimate decision maker on the floor. He thought he was an SEC player for a time last. He thought he was an NBA player. He still thinks he's an NBA player, but he is getting his lunch eaten by other A10 guards time in and time out, whether it's Quisenberry or Baldwin this week, or you name names, from other games, the guys we've played who, if they haven't necessarily completely beaten him one-on-one or statistically for the game, Yuri is just not, I just do not see an NBA player. I mean, I'm not rooting against the guy, but like, I've watched enough SEC, Big 12, a lot of Big East games this year, and man, oh man, there are a lot of point guards doing better things for their teams this season. And his assist number is really impressive. It's really something to see. But
he's not helping us win.
The inconsistent, that's really it. The inconsistency of this offense, of this team, a lot of that goes through him. And when I watch him stop passing the ball inexplicably down the stretch of a game where you're down single digits and you're trying to take layups against 3 6'8" guys in a lane who are just licking their chops when they see you dribbling at them. Like, what are you doing? Like, how is that? How is that getting you closer to your goal of becoming a pro player? You got to win.
Yeah, it's almost as though he looks up at the scoreboard and he sees his assist tally and, man, I got to get those points. NBA teams want scores.
NBA teams want to win. I don't think they care about anything else. I mean, sure, yeah, there are measurables, there are a lot of different things that they're looking at. But if they see something that you do that's going to help them win, that's what does it. And if you can't help SLU win in the A10 in a league that you're supposed to be winning in, that
with
you're supposed to be challenging for,
that you should win with.
You've got shooters on the wing, you've got you've got advantages in a lot of ways, and it's just not materializing. I don't understand it, and it's crazy to me to watch him fall into these bad habits over and over again when he has so much to play for.
Yeah, man, This game, I just can't, it's one of those things where I think, oh man, dude,
You were in a dark place after this game,
yes,
and look, it's
was.
VCU. I've been down in the dumps probably more at other times, even this season. But it seemed like this was the one that put you over the edge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those for me. I I don't get out like with my hobby of triathlon. I don't go out and like I don't drink at the game often. I don't go before the game to drink. I don't go after that kind of stuff. So like I'm hyped up for VCU and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to Humphreys before, gonna have a few drinks at the game, and you throw money at the evening and it's just great. Thanks for just like I mean at least like I would have been okay with a loss. Like at the end of the day, if we go in that game and it comes down to final possession and VCU hits the shot, great. But what I can't take is just an utter like you're close heading into crunch time. And I mean not even like 10 seconds into crunch time, you've already pissed the game away.
Yeah. So, a couple things. There is a very reasonable scenario here in which SLU plays a good game and Ace Baldwin is just that dude that night, right? I don't think that was the case here necessarily because I don't think there was enough else out of ECU that really beat us necessarily. I think it was a lot of SLU getting away from the things that work, right? And just not playing good basketball, especially not good basketball for long enough periods of time. The other thing you're saying there though, and I think this like cuts more to like where the fan base is and like what we have to do going forward, because like you're like, this was my night out, right? Like this was my cheat night. This was my night off. I love this program. I love this team. Like this is what I'm giving it up for, right?
I got it inked on me, dude.
Yeah. Hey, trust me. I don't think anyone questions your commitment to this
No,
program.
I'm not. I'm not trying to like measure. I'm not doing a measuring contest here either.
Not at all. No,
I'm.
but my point is like this is supposed to be fun, and like and from my perspective, clearly not a triathlon runner here, triathlete, but like I've got two kids under the age of 7. I've just had like the toughest 6 weeks challenge of my entire professional career. I've been incredibly busy at work, just so much stress in every aspect. And it's like, all right, it's Friday night. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch this game. And all it's doing is adding more stress. It's like, it's not supposed to happen like that. It's supposed to be fun. And that's really hard. And I wonder, Zach, if it's not just us or, who are getting frustrated here. I mean, like we saw kind of an unusual tweet from Dr. Chaffetz, who's normally a pretty upbeat guy.
Terrible loss for St. Louis men's basketball. No more, no less. And he added the program too, as if they wouldn't see it anyway.
Right. Right.
Man, I mean, I think he had something like 20 replies to that tweet. I would say most of them calling for Travis Ford's job. Man, dude, I write a fine line because again, every time somebody talks about Travis Ford, they say, he'll hype up the team will look great, ready going into the season, a lot of talent and just will underperform. And it's probably the greatest, like that's the greatest thing ever. Like that's the greatest weapon you can have as a coach almost. Is like your fan base you just keep getting your fan base excited. I mean, like I've tried, like I just watched Brock Weiss put down a and one, like literally look like the and one Shaq logo.
Yeah.
And a dunk. Sion Medley's getting nothing but floor general praise. Now, whether that's Yuri Collins' idea of floor general or an actual, like a Kwame floor general, I would prefer the latter. And then of course, Brujang, he finally, came back onto the, I guess, he was off the map for a little bit and finally kind of resurfaced.
Yeah.
So it's hard because you want to get excited about potential for players coming in, and then it's like, wait a minute, if we if we get rid of Travis, like those players aren't coming in. It's
So
I don't know.
it's tough because SLU is not an SEC, or like, we're not a football school. There's not just like a war chest of money the way, like, no matter who our boosters are or what they're willing to do, it's just not that place, right? Like, this isn't LSU or Ohio State or one of these crazy resourced programs like that. What is true, we are investing heavily in this program, right? Like through tax disclosures and things that we can kind of find out. We know Travis Ford is making somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 million a year, which makes him by a pretty healthy margin the highest paid coach in the A10. And we know that 2 years ago he signed an extension. In my mind, that, normally with a college coach, that puts him out 5 years, possibly 4.
So yeah, my guess is always 4, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but say if it's 5, that means after this year, that's 3 more years. And if you're buying him out, just the simple math, that's $7.5 million. If it's 2 more years, that's $5 million. That's a big chunk of money. When we bought out the last 2 years on Jim Cruz's salary, it was more in the neighborhood of 3, right? It's a little more doable.
And it was so bad.
It was so bad. There was no choice. And Cruz himself knew it too. Now, look, you mentioned the guys coming in next year. They can be great. They can be absolutely game ready to play minutes in the A10, but that doesn't get away from the fact that we're still rebuilding next year. Yeah. Collins is gone. Pickett's gone. Perkins is gone. We probably think a couple other guys are gone. Okoro and Forrester are gone. They have no choice.
Thatch is. I mean, I think
Thatch is retired. I mean, like, we've just named 6 guys there, and we have 2 or 3 others who could leave.
And you're not looking at a Billiken soccer situation where we're making the Elite 8. It's
after that, you go to a lot of guys who have not really played yet. Your whole rotation, potentially, we don't know about Jimerson and Hargrove for sure, but potentially your whole rotation is gone, to the point where somebody like Sincere might be the highest contributing returner next season. That's a very realistic scenario. So no matter how good those freshmen are, we are rebuilding next year.
Yeah. And it's going to be the portal. It's the portal or bust if Ford is here, regardless.
But when I'm looking around, and I've kind of made this point to some other people, and I don't know if I've necessarily made it on the show yet, I don't think the return on the portal is quite what people think it might be. Fordham got a great transfer in Moore. A lot of other transfers, when you look around the league, haven't necessarily played up to their potential. And it's not just true of our league, it's all over the place. There was crazy NIL money thrown at players in the portal. And sometimes these schools, like, who are expecting some of these guys to make a big jump up, are going, well, maybe this is why this guy was just like a 2 or 3 star out of high school in the first place. He's just marginally better than he was. So you've got to be really careful in the portal, because you're not going to have 4 years to like build a guy up, right? Like, he has to be good right away, because you're only going to get 1 or 2 years out of most of these transfers, maybe 3 if you get a guy a little bit younger. But you need a guy who's a fit. You need a guy who's got the ability to contribute right away. And we've seen enough transfers come in here that just haven't quite played up to expectations. So you really need to, in this situation, you need to hit a home run in the portal. It can't just be a few role players.
Yeah. Right now, I don't know where you think SLU. Where do you think Travis Ford stands? I think it's going to be up to. It's honestly probably up to Chaffetz.
Well, we've got to see how this season plays out. We've seen other situations where at this point in the year. We're not feeling great.
Sixth. Well, no, actually, Travis Ford is just he knows what he's doing. Sixth place, win the tournament. That's
That's right. It's all about Brooklyn, right? It's all about the A10. Is it in Brooklyn this year? Yeah,
Yes,
it's in
it
Brooklyn.
is.
Yeah.
Trust me, I have the flight that I have a hairpin trigger ready to cancel it at any moment.
So there it is, right? Like it's all about that. The A10 is so weird this year. I think gambling on the A10 tournament would be like maybe the stupidest use of anyone's money in history. I mean, it's literally a 1 in 15 throw of a dart. It's who knows. But you know, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. We are technically still in second place. As bad as this has gone, I mean, Dayton fans would, and you know, we'll get into that soon, but Dayton fans, I'm sure, are feeling a lot of the same feelings we are right now.
Yeah. You know, again, it's hard to see Chris May making this move. Not the type of move he's really made. I think the only comparable, well, obviously the only other time he's made a men's basketball coaching change was Jim Cruz. He had no choice there. But I think the closest we come here is Mike McGinty in 2017, being let go from his head coaching position with men's soccer. You know, I think you wonder, though, if the experience with Cruz makes him less or more likely to pull the trigger on a coaching change early.
It's a good point. The thing about a coaching change is it can be the right time on your end, but you've also got to find the right person coming in. And I think we're going to, you know, we've teased this already, but in another episode, we're going to get into like kind of the what ifs, and some of the what ifs with this program have to do with the timing of coaching changes. You can make a change that it's like, hey, look, this is like a clean break for us, right? It's the right time, but you just might not have the right candidates out there. Look, we don't know what it's going to look like when everybody shuffles around in March, and maybe this is one of those years where we see a lot of movement, because we didn't see much movement, you know, that first COVID year, because the tournament didn't play out. And so you know, maybe there's guys who bought themselves an extra year or two, and maybe there's some pent up demand at programs to make changes. Who knows what it looks like, but it's got to be, things have to work out right. And I do want to reiterate that I like Travis. I'm not rooting.
Yeah, I think
I want him to work out.
Yeah.
I think people are not just us. People are frustrated with how things are going right
now. Just kind of a rundown of the last the years of the last coaching change and who was let go. 2023 was Kent Miller, volleyball. 2022 Lisa Stone, swimming. 2022 Halliburton. That's a weird one that I think we need to get into one day. But
he resigned, right?
And he definitely resigned. He definitely resigned. I think, you know, they didn't really see eye to eye on the program and his compensation, so he pieced out. Baumgartner, field hockey 2019. Jonathan Zich, tennis 2019. McGinty 2017. And then Cruz 2016. Coach has been here the longest are John Bell, track and field 2008. Christy Canoyer, softball, been here since 2010. Hendrickson here since 2008. Yeah, I mean, just kind of putting that out there for context.
Well, and it bears repeating that the economic side of this is completely different in men's basketball,
which is why
all of these others.
Which is why I think the only comparable one close is McGinty,
right?
Who wasn't living up to program expectations.
And they don't disclose. It's a private school. These are not disclosed salaries, but we all know, right? Yeah. We all know that Travis Ford makes more than a lot of those coaches combined.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's a sticking point for a lot of people, not just fans. Yeah, it's just, I don't want to see anyone fail. I really don't. I hate it.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. He's been so gracious with us.
Yeah,
you know, like directly. We don't want this, but you know, it's clear where sentiment is building among the fan base, and it's not pretty this season. These operating under the burden of expectations, like this was going to be the year.
All right, Billiken fans, continuing a little bit of how we've kind of been running the show. This week we have Gary Azera and Andrew Pazinski of the Rhode Baseline to help us preview the Billikens and Rams part 3 of the last 7 days, I believe. They are a Rhode Island fan podcast that covers men's and women's basketball and all the latest happenings in the A10. Gary and Andrew, thanks for joining us on the Midtown Madness podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us, and all the power to you. You're one of the first people that has pronounced my last name right, so good for you.
I was just about to say that was pretty good at pronouncing his last name. I'm already impressed at this point.
Of all the things that I'm bad at, pronunciations are not one of them.
We appreciate you guys having us, and we look forward to talking the game, and hopefully we can pull off the upset, but it's going to take a lot of work out of our boys in blue to take down you guys on Tuesday night.
It's year 1 in the Archie Miller era at Rhode Island. Rhode is 8-14 overall and 4-6 in a crowded cluster of teams just below 500 in the A10. How do you think the team is performing compared to expectations coming into the season with Miller as head coach?
That's a tough question to start. I think we've had our ups, we've had our downs. I mean, you can expect that with a first-year team. We've definitely seen the what's the word I'm looking for? The potential of Archie. Definitely think they got the right guy. Obviously, the win totals aren't there like it was with David Cox last year, but I think the culture is big. And the one thing I will say, no matter how many games we lose this year, the team hasn't given up. We just lost to, I believe it was St. Joe's in Philly, and they fought the whole game. And I think the perfect example is that LaSalle game. They were down 11 at the half, could have easily folded. It was a weekend game at the Ryan Center. I think the students were first game back, and they came back, won that game. And I think that just shows you that it's there, and hopefully we can capitalize on it the rest of this way. And as long as we don't play on Wednesday, we'll be happy.
That's interesting. So it seems like the vibes are still positive out of Rhode Island, despite what's going on.
Yeah, they're good vibes, and that should tell you how the last couple of seasons have been in Kingston. We were very excited that around here, Rhode Island's the state school, and they're not the state hasn't really put a lot of money into the basketball program, and to see the school make the investment in the basketball program, bringing in a big name head coach was huge for us. We just broke ground on a practice facility last year that I believe is supposed to be done either June this year or before next season. So obviously the steps are being taken to get the program back to where it was under Dan Hurley. And it also helps where our football program and our women's basketball program are starting to trend up. So it just gives like not that men's basketball isn't, but it doesn't have all the eyes on it as they do their rebuild.
So you're led by 2 6'2", 180-pound sophomores from Washington, D.C., Ishmael Leggett and Breon Freeman. For two guys who kind of look so similar on a roster, what can you tell us about the differences in their games?
I think that's Ish. I mean, Ish he's been with us for 3 years now, and he's more the distributor, the calm leader on the court. And Breon, we've seen Breon last year at GW. This year, he just shoots. He's a fun-loving guy, just loves to play the game, scores. It was our last home game, and before the game, he's dancing along with the band. He looks like he's out there having fun, and he can get you the bucket when you need to get the bucket. Some of the shots he's shooting is crazy. Some of these ridiculous circle shots. It's crazy. Once these two get a full summer together and a full season together and get to be with Archie for one more year, I think the A10 is going to be one of those backcourts of like us Rhode fans, probably Fats, Jared Terrell, E.C. Matthews, those three. If we can get half of what that is, the A10's in trouble.
Yeah, and I want to jump in on that too. So the one good thing, and it ties in with Archie as well. So Brayon in the beginning of the season was having a tough time getting used to the different atmosphere. So Archie decided to bench him for after I think it was the second or the third game, and a lot of fans could have looked at that and said, why is he benching him? He's one of your top scorers, etc. From that moment on, when he's put him back in there, he's been a beast and contributed to help me out with Ish as well, which is a huge point and has kind of turned the tables where everyone was a little worried about Brayon, but he's kind of shown that he likes where he's at. And like Andrew said, the last game at home, he was pumping up the crowd, jumping around, he just seems like he's having a good time out there.
This team is young. One senior in Malik Martin, one junior in Jalen Carey, and everyone else is a freshman or sophomore. Is the thought that this roster is going to mostly look the same next season as Archie builds around a young core, or are some of these guys going to cycle out as he upgrades either talent or experience?
I think majority of we only have 3 holdovers from last year, being Jalen, Malik, and Ish, as you said. But and we have a redshirt sophomore, Boo Sam. Those are the 4 holdovers. But outside of that, these are all Archie's guys who he brought in. A lot of them are getting playing time. There's a couple on the bench that aren't, who you could see possibly transferring out. But majority of the guys he brought them in the transfer portal. So it seemed like they're all going to be here for the foreseeable future, especially Brayon Freeman, Brandon Weston, the transfer from Seton Hall. Then we have those are the 2 big guys that are playing a lot of minutes. We also have Sebastian Thomas, who is a holdover. He's a Rhode Island kid. I don't see him going anywhere. He grew up in Providence, went to school in Providence, so he is a Rhode Island kid, so he'll definitely stay. Definitely a lot of young kids. And then there's a couple of guys on the bench you could see transferring or redshirting. But I also believe that Archie didn't use all the scholarships. I believe we have 2 or 3 left over that he didn't fill out.
Wow.
So I think don't hold me to that. So I think we can definitely expand on that. But yeah, definitely a young team. The one thing I will tell you is we need more bigs. We're set at the guard position, but we could definitely use some more bigs.
Which transitions right into this question, because I'm looking at your roster and I'm looking at your production, and it kind of looks like maybe you play a little on the small side. You've got Bilal, who's 6'10", he averages about 7 and 6. You've got a 6'11" kid who averages about 3 and 3, and then Abdu Sam is about 6'8", and he averages about 5 and 3. Is it just kind of a guard heavy scheme, or are you just not getting great production out of these guys?
It's a little bit of both. I believe it was Bilal who actually is out for the season. He injured his knee a few weeks ago, so he's out for the season. So now
you're correct, Andrew.
Now we're on a 3-man bigs with one of our freshmen, Rory Stewart, who's not your prototypical 5. He's more of a 4 and was brought in here as a Kelly Olynyk shooter type of big. He can shoot the ball, but he's been thrust to play the 5 when we get into foul trouble. So that's actually how we won the LaSalle game. Archie made the halftime adjustment, and we played 5 guards the entire second half. And LaSalle just couldn't adjust to having 5 guards on the court. Because Malik Martin, he can play as a big, but he's a guard. He's a smaller version of his brother, and we all know how his brother wreaked havoc in the A-10 a few years ago.
Right.
I think that'll be an interesting talking point going into this Billiken game, because SLU plays 4 out, 1 in. Obviously they have the horses to play that style. So it will be interesting to see, but so definitely, I think a storyline for Billiken fans to watch. There's no way around it. The Rams have had a tough go of it, especially in non-conference play. Just 4 wins and some really painful losses.
You're telling
us. Sorry, dude. Were there any positives that you guys were able to take away from that stretch, or is it a no moral victories type deal?
There were definitely some moral victories at the beginning of the season. Like I would say the PC game, which is our big rivalry game, which is kind of like you guys in Dayton. They're our in-state rival, Providence. We played an awful first half, but managed to come back and make it a game. The same thing with our game at Boston College. We were down by 11, managed to come back, but we just kept blowing it. So there were a couple of moral victories, but at some point, Gary and I think we talked about it a few times, how at some point, you got to stop having the moral victories and be able to finally finish off a couple of games, which they were able to do against, I think the first big victory that we had was getting off the Schneid and getting Archie his first win against Stony Brook, but the Caymans wasn't a success for us, which whatever. But I think the two big wins that we really had were against UMass Lowell. UMass Lowell is one of the tops in their conferences. We were down, I believe, 10 points in the second half in that game, and the team, for whatever reason, came back, picked up. The Ryan Center was rocking. They were able to come back, and I think that's the first time you saw that, okay, what Archie's building is working here. The players believe, and you just have to wait. We know we're a mid-major program. You're not going to be able to bring in these big names that a Kentucky is going to be able to bring in, or a Duke's going to be able to bring in on a first-year head coach. It's going to take some time to build in. And I believe I told Gary this as we were leaving the Ryan Center that night. I go, mark my words. You remember how empty this building is 3-4 years from now when Archie has turned Rhode Island into Dayton. This place is going to be packed. We'll be winning games and going to the tournament every year, like a Dayton, like a VCU, like a St. Louis, for example, sometimes. And we'll be one of the favorites in Brooklyn. Hopefully it won't be in Brooklyn, but that's an argument for another day.
Yeah, UMass Lowell. That's that isn't a bad win. They beat UMass Amherst this year, so they've already drawn that.
They are the
A10
flagship.
blood. That's right.
Yeah, I like these guys already. They don't like you, trash. I mean, UMass.
I don't. To be fair, I really don't like anybody. And
Fair.
it's just that I rarely think about George Mason and Fordham.
Yeah, Fordham's got a good squad this year.
Oh,
I don't. Yeah. No. Now talk about fan base that was just kind of trash in the last week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've never encountered them at
Never.
all, and all of a sudden they're in our inbox and in our mentions with like just horrible stuff.
Yeah, Gary and I are making the trip up to Fordham at the end of the month. We already beat them once, but we try to go to every arena, and we have yet to we want to get to St. Louis, but we have to go on weekends, and we haven't played you guys on a weekend yet.
Keep us posted on that.
Oh yeah, we will.
So Rhode Island's one of the only teams we've seen this season actually cancel a game for COVID within the program. That was the Milwaukee game in late December. What was the mood when that happened? Was it like, here we go again? Or was it just kind of a knowledge like, actually, yeah, we did just have a bunch of positive tests and this is just a kind of a short-term fluke?
I think it came as to us as a shock, to be completely honest, because they canceled it like the day before. They had the game in Georgia State that weekend, and we had heard like a little bit of rumblings that the team had a little bit of a bug going into that game. And then they actually, rumor has it, I don't know how true it is, half the team had to bus back from Georgia because they were sick.
Wow.
So it was I think it was more of a one-time thing because that game was the Tuesday before Christmas, and we didn't play again until New Year's Eve. So we just think it was like, okay, let's shut things down. Let's get everybody healthy. We'll come back for the A10. I'm assuming if there was more time in between conference play and stuff, we would have rescheduled it, because I know it was the back end of back-to-back with Milwaukee, or home and home with Milwaukee. So hopefully we can get that one back on the schedule. But I think it was more of just a fluke type of deal with us, and not for nothing, coming out of that, they looked a lot. They were starting to play a lot better after that. I mean, I know the score doesn't show with us losing, going 1-2 to start A10 play, but they had more jump in their step. It was like it was a reset, if you will.
You mentioned that Fordham game. Every A10 game just really feels like a coin flip. I think we should highlight two wins that you guys had, including that Fordham game. The other one is Dayton. One team we struggled with on the road, and one team is our main rival, who we still have to play twice. What did you see in those games? You mentioned, the what was it, versus Fordham, the 5 guard?
No, we did that against LaSalle.
Sorry, yeah. So then again, what did you see in those games, the Fordham and Dayton game, that ultimately gave Rhode the advantage?
I think the big thing in the Dayton game was one of their starters didn't play, so that obviously had a big helping in it. But and the Dayton game, I don't know what got into us, but we were hitting shots like we've never hit shots before. We were rebounding. Like our two big issues are rebounding and hitting shots, and we were doing both of those. So that probably had something to do with it. But and it's hard to. I'm not one for that, but
did Archie Miller just tell them he'll take them all out to get McDonald's if they beat Dayton? Is that
that's
what
what I
happened?
think. Like he talked that whole week that it wasn't big to him, and then some of the players were like, "We got to get this win for Archie." So as much as like all the coaches all the time say, "Oh, we don't put a lot of emphasis on these games," like let's be real, that was on the bulletin board. We got to go get Archie this win. Like they can tell us all what they want. The guys knew that this one meant more to Archie, and they played like that. And the other thing I hate to say, the crowd that night was one of the best crowds we had all season. So I think the crowd played a part in that. And like I said, they were missing one of their starters. And then I think it was Holmes. Holmes is their NBA prospect. I think we played very well against him. I mean, he still got his 19 points, but I think we zoned in on him, and that was the key to shutting Dayton down. And then obviously the refs were calling some fouls that were a little questionable, but that's typical in the Atlantic 10.
No.
And then
so we're not the only ones, huh?
No. And I think the big thing, and that's if you look at all of Rhode Island's wins, the big thing is if Rhode Island gets to the free throw line. If we get to the free throw line, odds are we're gonna win a few games.
So was that the case in the Fordham game too?
Let me double check, but I know that was we shot 23 of 26 against Dayton from the free throw line, and they only got to the line 17 times. In the Fordham game, we got to the line 30 times, and they only. So yeah, if we can get to the line, we'll do pretty well in winning. It's a good recipe. But if you guys out rebound us, you guys will destroy us because we can't. Rebounding is our issue. We've gotten better the last few games, but you guys get offensive rebounds. There's nothing we can do about it.
We have a lot of issues. It's really hard to pinpoint just one. One of them will rear its ugly head every game, whether it be rebounding, defense, scoring.
Yeah, but y'all are still second in the conference.
It's baffling. It makes no sense.
Perspective, my friend.
Yeah, no, I think the keys to this game is if Rhode Island, if Ishmael and Brayon can get to the line with Malik, you guys are going to be in trouble. But if you guys can keep the guards on the perimeter and not let us get on the boards, you guys are going to be in good shape.
So we've got a player, Jake Forrester, who spent the beginning of his college career playing for Archie Miller at Indiana. He came onto our show after, he was new to the team last summer and told us that he would be very, very ready for this game. Is there any awareness of this matchup from the Rhode Island perspective? Or is this something that Zach and I have just kind of, since we've talked to him about it, kind of pinpointed as look out for this matchup?
Well, to put it to you this way, I did not know Jake Forrester played for Indiana before he was at St. Louis. So that should tell you that right there.
Well, technically he played at Temple before St. Louis.
Yeah, we're his third stop.
See, that tells you how much we know about him up here in Kingston. So, yeah, I think to be completely honest with you, Archie hasn't really talked about his time at Indiana. He's only really talked about his time at Dayton.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, he doesn't really mention Indiana at all. He's talked mostly about Dayton and how he wants to turn Rhode Island into an A10 power again.
Yeah, I can't imagine he had a very good time at Indiana.
Yeah.
I
can't blame him.
Obviously, there's not a lot known about Rhode Island from a SLU perspective, but who's a guy that may be unknown that Billiken fans should look out for?
That's a hard question to answer because it depends on how Archie substitutes people in. In the starting lineup, you'll have Jalen Carey, the transfer to Syracuse, who's in his third year, I believe, in Rhode Island. He's a quick, shifty guard who will surprise you with how high he can jump. He can get to the turnovers, so he can turn the ball over a lot, but He's fast. He gets right up in you. Defensively, he's pretty aggressive, so I'd keep an eye on him. Brandon Weston coming off the bench, the transfer from from Seton Hall. He's been getting more and more in Archie's goodwill and getting more and more minutes. He can shoot the three, so he's a guy under the radar that nobody really talks about. And then I would say Sebastian Thomas, the kid out of Providence. He's another good guard who comes off the bench. He's quick, he's fast, he's got a good handle. He's got a mean floater. You'll think he's going to keep driving for the layup, and then he'll just put that floater right over and into the hoop over you guys. So make sure you guys are up a little bit further in the box instead of down right around the circle and that.
I will pass that along to Travis Ford.
Let me know if he takes that advice.
Brandon Weston is a kid I believe we recruited in high school. I don't know if we were seriously in the mix or anything like that, but I do remember us recruiting him and him going to Seton Hall.
Yeah.
One of the things I always like to know is when, we now have a pretty good perspective of who Rhode Island is this season, but how do you guys perceive SLU this year? Whether it be how we're performing versus expectations, or just what you think of SLU as an opponent this season?
You guys are always been tough to us. You still have Yuri Collins, but back in the days of Ahmad French and Goodwin and all them, you guys were always tough. But I think you guys are one of the conference favorites. If you guys had a little bit of a tougher non-conference, we could be talking about an at-large bid for you guys. You guys are always tough. I think it's going to be a dogfight on Tuesday nights, and I definitely always have wanted to get out to St. Louis to see the Billikens play. Travis Ford isn't my favorite coach in the whole wide world, but
shocking. Another person. You wait a minute. I mean, dude, he spurned UMass. You gotta love that shit.
Yeah, I don't know. We had Dan Hurley, but
he always gets a little. Talk about the worst.
He always gets aggressive. I don't know. We have Archie now, but I don't know. Travis Ford, I don't know. He just rubbed me the wrong way. But I will say, I've always respected the St. Louis fans because we were in Brooklyn a few years ago, and me and Gary actually had dinner at what turned out to be the St. Louis bar. I think it was McMahon's. Come around the corner. Right. They had the big Billiken thing blown up right in front of the bar. And then all the fans were coming in, and we had just lost, or we had just won a game. And they were like, "Oh, good game, good game." And then I saw some people who actually worked with the university, and they're all really nice talking to us. So I've always had respect for the St. Louis fans as well as some other schools, but we also all have the schools where we absolutely hate their fan bases.
That's good to know. At least our fans aren't hated. Do you think Travis is maybe the least liked coach in the A-10?
No, I think Frank Martin's starting to win that battle.
Oh, wow, so soon.
Yeah, that didn't take long. There we have obviously we're close to UMass. We have some of their Twitter feeds on us, and apparently he said some questionable things in his.
No, I'll stop it there. He did not. I will defend him. I will defend him this time on this one. You got to go back and watch the whole video. That dude, whoever took it out of context, honestly, if I'm Frank Martin, I'm taking that dude's press pass. I don't care.
We also we tweeted at him at the beginning of the season, like good banter, fun. They tweeted, "Oh, let's pack the Mullins Center or something," and we tweeted, "Oh, why? You're gonna give away stuff or something like that because they never get any fans." And then he goes, "Oh, you guys mind your own damn business. We'll handle us. You guys handle yourself." And I'm like, dude, you've been in Amherst for 2 weeks. You're going to let these two 20-something-year-olds who are talking basketball on Twitter get in your head? And we were like, whatever.
He doesn't he has not modernized well. Zach and I went over this a couple weeks ago where he had that weird rant in a press conference after a game. It seems like social media really gets to him. Like he doesn't know how to handle that at all.
He has nothing else to do in Amherst, so he probably gets lost in it.
He's like, again, he's been kind of funky, since he arrived, but like I will defend him on the most recent comments.
Yeah.
I don't think he was saying what that guy made it out to be saying at all. Well, anyway, hey, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully, things get a little bit better in Kingston after Tuesday.
Hopefully after Tuesday. Thanks so much for having us. And hopefully next year we travel out to St. Louis and it's on a weekend so Gary and I can show up and see what St. Louis has to offer.
Come on out. I got all the recommendations.
Perfect.
All right,
Sounds
take
good.
it easy.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one.
Well, thanks. Thanks to the guys from Rhode Baseline for joining the show. Pete, there's a couple big games this week, but then there's a bigger game on Sunday. And you know what would be great to keep stocked in your fridge for that party?
Yeah, it would, and I'm due for an order. I'm like on my last jar right now, which for me means it's time to reorder. And I'm trying to craft, Zach. I don't know if we're gonna see eye to eye on this, but like I try to order 6 at a time, like my perfect 6-pack. And generally, here's how I'm doing it: it's 2 dill pickles that go into the order, and then I get 4 salsas. I generally do 1 screaming hot. I'll do 1 regular hot. I'll do 1 of the fruits. And actually last time I got the medium sugar free to try that one out. And it was great. It's they have a 6-pack option on there. They've got a 4-pack option on there, but I kind of like to build my own and do it that way. And then I'll throw in a pickling pouch because that's easy to kind of squeeze in there as well. So that's a little behind the scenes peek at how I'm going to have my fridge stocked for the big game next week, Zach. Oh, and why would I leave it out? 2minuteinagarden.com is where you can go make that happen. Of course. 2minuteinagarden.com is where I'm going to be visiting after we finish recording here, and I'm going to put in another order.
Before we finish recording, though, we got to talk to Dan Sullivan about Arch Baron Cup 2023 round 1. And that interview is coming up right now. Billiken fans, you know what week it is. There was a lot of talk about North Carolina, Duke, hyping that game up with 2 unranked programs. And I would say it's much easier to hype up the Arch Baron Cup. And when it's Arch Baron Cup week, we got to talk to my best frenemy, Dan Sullivan. Sully, what's going on, buddy?
Good to be back on the show. It's Arch Baron Cup week indeed, but I'd be remiss if I did not mention that this matchup has kind of lost a little bit of shine, fellas. I think we can all just come clean and admit that to ourselves as we start tonight.
Sandbagging already.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It just is what it is, man. You know what? And I'll start the show with this, like just to kind of set the table, right? Like I legitimately don't know how other fans of programs in this conference do this shit. Like none of our games matter between now and like the first week of March. And you'll see this all the time. Like UMass fans are like, big game tonight. Like we got an important one. Like, no, it's not, man. Like it's not an important game, like it's not a big game. And I just this is one of those years where I'm taking a step back and I'm like, how do fans of programs that don't matter do this? Because like Dayton now is in that space. Like we're pretty irrelevant right now as far as at-large conversation. And man, like hats off to those people. God, how do they do it, man? How?
It's a good question. It makes me feel like I ask this every college football year where I see fan bases like, all right, we've got a bowl game coming up, the taxslayer.com bowl against Middle Tennessee. We really got to get up for this game. And I look at it like I cannot in my life imagine caring about one of those like lower bowl games at all. You're right, though. I mean, like here we sit, both of our teams are still on that, top 4 line where we get the double bye in the A-10 tournament. And yet it's way below expectations. And I guess I'll flip it to you first. Year 6 of the Anthony Grant era this season, clearly fallen short of expectations. It seems like Dayton fans, though, have been very up and down on him this season. Where do you stand right now on Anthony Grant as your head coach? And where do you think that compares to the rest of the fan
Kicking
base?
it off hot.
I mean, at this point, the results speak for themselves. I wrote down this afternoon, just for my own sanity, through so let's call it 23 games or 24 games, as it were. I tried to find on February 5th, where has Dayton been in 5 out of 6 years, right? That was my goal here. So the one COVID year I had to take to the end of the year because, February 5th, we'd only played 12 games or something. So this year we're 15-9. Last year at this point, we were 15-8. The 2021 year, we were 14-9. The year of Jesus, we were 20-2, of course. The year before that, we were 15-8. And the first year of Anthony Grant, we were 10-12. So I mean, I don't really have to argue with people about it anymore. It's if this is good enough for you as a Dayton fan, we just have different expectations of where the program's going to be. And, if that means you have to support Grant or, you have to be in his corner, I mean, so be it. But the results speak for themselves. We're talking about a coach that hasn't won a tournament game since 2007. We're talking about a guy that's gone to the tournament one time in his last 12 collegiate seasons. I mean, there's nothing to talk about anymore. It's at this point, I haven't publicly been hey, we need to move on. But if we don't win the A10 tournament, that's where I'll be, is it's just time to move on. This isn't working. And I had somebody ask me recently, oh, well, how quickly have you forgotten about 2020? And I'm that's the only reason we're even having this conversation about Anthony Grant. If 2020 was even a middle of the road year, it would be unequivocally fire him now and let's move on before the end of the season, right? But where we're sitting here today, I mean, if Dayton fans, want to be 15-9 and have meaningless Februaries every year, then yeah, AG's your guy, man, because he's been doing that more years than he hasn't. So, I mean, I'm frustrated, but to be honest, I think what really sucks is that people have to pick their sides right now, right? And they have to support that side. But I don't have a side. Whether you AG or hate AG, I just want to win basketball games. And I don't really care who the coach is that gets us there, right? So it's a long-winded way of just saying, am I in or out on AG? I mean, I'm in on a coach that is successful and is going to get us to the tournament. And it's pretty clear that he's not that guy, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you think? Well, I'm curious. Sorry, Pete. By the way, when you started out with "Here We Sit," I thought you were breaking into a bathroom stall limerick there for a minute.
Yeah.
No.
It's Sunday night. I'm a little bit. I'm not in my best. Tuesday nights when I spit my best.
No. So it's interesting because you guys went into this season basically oh my God, we're bringing everybody back. We're going to be amazing, all this stuff. And we did similar, but with different reasonings.
Yeah.
And Pete, my prophetic co-host, who has already turned around the Loyola Chicago Ramblers by telling them they have a bench. So he will now be leaving the show to take the assistant job at Loyola next year. Yeah. He said straight up that Dayton, might be expecting too big of a leap based on advancement of 1 year, age-wise for that team. What do you think about the idea that maybe their inexperience is still the reason they're not getting over that hump?
No, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons, but experience isn't one of them, because last year, that whole let's call it a narrative, even though I don't love that being thrown around in college basketball because it assumes agenda. But last year it was that Dayton was, a super young team because of the freshman sophomore nomenclature next to their name, right? But this year, and that barely held water because a lot of those guys were in their second year of collegiate basketball, right? They just hadn't played a full year because of the COVID year, right? So then at this point in Dayton's lineup, okay, I'm going to read these off and hopefully these will load fast enough for me. But Tamani Kamara is nearing his 100th game. No, he's over 100 games. He's played 115 games in collegiate basketball, okay? And I can go down the list here Amzil, Blakeney, Brea.
We don't
Elvis.
Care about you that much.
No, I know, but I know, I'm not gonna list them all off. But basically, what I'm saying is I could go down the list of Dayton's roster, and these guys have played like a minimum of 50 games in collegiate basketball. So at first, Dayton fans were like, all right, well, we're experienced, like we're inexperienced. We'll figure it out this year. And like, okay, all right, I hear that. And then it was, well, we just got to get healthy, and then we'll be good this year. We'll be fine. Okay, then we got healthy, and we're losing to Bonaventure, Rhode Island anyways. GW, right? And then it's like, well, we got all this talent. Like, Grant will be able to put it together and, like, turn this thing around. Here we are, 15-8 with all that talent I was told about for the last 2 years, and we're in the exact same spot. So it's like frustrating for me because I know fans want to be hopeful, and they want to provide, like, here's the reasons I'm hopeful. And they're usually rooted with good intent. But, like, they don't hold water anymore. We're in the same space we were 5 out of 6 years. It just is what it is, right? There's one person to blame, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the narrative that I keep getting stuck on with Dayton this season is that they beat bad teams pretty soundly, and then they lose to good teams. That's kind of little upended recently because you've lost to George Washington and Rhode Island, narrowly beat Loyola. And then a couple more A10s, I think, would be what wouldn't be necessarily called bad teams.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Bonaventure result the other day. I don't know what to make of that yet. But is that overall impression of the season fair? Is there just kind of like a high floor, low ceiling situation? I mean, it sounds like that's what you're settling at as like the overall arc of the Anthony Grant era.
Yeah, I mean, they're just a poorly coached team, to be honest with you. Like, even if I like watch 10 of their games, you could turn them on any night and be like, you know what, this is not a well-coached team. And when you go back and you look at like all of Grant's teams in his 6 years, they all have like the same ailments over his entire resume. They turn the ball over a lot. They don't generate turnovers on the defensive end. Like they have just basically like these very strict guidelines that they follow. They all play very slow. They rely on the 2-point bucket. Never a great shooting team from outside. Their possession lengths are super slow. On defense, they slow you down too. We get behind. We can't make up that ground because we're unwilling to pick up the pace. It's like, that's kind of the more concerning thing. Like when you ask about Grant, like, how do you feel about him? Like, wins and losses are one thing, but like what's most concerning is we don't have an identity. Like, we don't play a good brand of basketball, and it's just, I don't know, it's boring. Like, it really is. It's so boring. And
we are all the same. Time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
The reality is a construct.
We've just been having this conversation for like an hour.
Shit. What in God's name?
So
it's so frustrating.
We're the same program in the same place with the same coach right now.
Because I was like,
do you guys just want to trade? Can we trade?
Try to swap coaches.
That would be like the ultimate sports experiment, by the way.
People got so mad at me last week. I was like, do you realize in year 6 of Anthony Grant that our identity as a program is like the building and the fans? It has nothing to do with the on-the-court product. It's all the other stuff. Because we talk about it all the time, because we're not going to talk about the winning that we're not doing. We got to talk about something. So you might as well talk about the arena. It's like, it's getting old, man.
Ours is always talent. We have the talent.
Got the talent. Oh, we're, wait for February or whatever. And that's the thing. Like, you guys get it, right? You can't turn it around in February in the A10. You've already sown the seeds of what's going to grow. You have to keep watering it in February. Like, you can't just all of a sudden be like, all right, we're going to turn it on and get in the tournament. Like, we don't play in the fucking Big Ten. You don't have Q1 opportunities abound. So it's too little too late for both of us.
Tremaine Isabel would take issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, it happened when we had one player who decided to get serious and really start playing. But I don't think that opportunity exists for most of us this season.
No, it's frustrating. I mean, the conference is so down, and you would think, like, with all three of us sitting here, if we would have had this conversation like a month ago, you'd have been like, by the time we get to Arch Baron Cup, like, both of our teams will have like a loss or two, right? And like, here we are, like, we both suck.
First place hanging in the balance, the two clear-cut favorites. It's a heavyweight title match.
We're like,
in the notes I have, this is not a good matchup for SLU this season. throw that out the window.
No,
I don't know.
mean,
I don't know. Sorry, Pete. I'm
On
throwing your
paper,
note out.
I'm telling
the
you.
window.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
On paper, but like we live in a reality that is just the most. We watching Pepperdine and whoever the hell they played. I don't.
Fullerton, last night, the
Yeah.
other night.
Yeah.
oh,
That
yeah.
I thought I was watching an Atlantic 10 game.
Oh,
I
yeah,
had
it was bad.
no idea.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what happens in this game. I mean, honestly, again, I've seen Holmes and Kamara just get completely taken out of the game. Seen Amzil be taken out of the like, but then again, on our side, like I've seen, Perkins being taken out of the game.
Yeah.
It's just I have no idea, dude. When you look at this matchup, Sully, are you looking at it as with Slew as a big opportunity for the front court to go off, or are you worried about potential vulnerabilities in the back court, or do you just not give a shit anymore?
Oh man, I'm close, dude. I'm real close. Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most indifferent I've been about the team for probably a decade,
Yeah.
and it's been brewing. It's not like this happened overnight. It's just I know what's in front of us. But to speak about the basketball doing that's going to happen on Friday, it's even hard to say this is a bad matchup for you guys because we can't guard the perimeter very well at all. And any kind of getting hot at the 3-point arc will keep you in the game for us. Right. So if the guards are getting penetration and then creating mismatches, Slew is going to be able to put up points. Right. And I thought that Dayton's defense was their strength, and it's not. And the other thing I'll say in your favor is Travis Ford's been very good against us over the years at being physical down low, just being physical in general, right? Against Dayton. I don't know how it's been against everybody else, but if you get physical with this team, we're soft. I'll tell you that straight up. This team is just soft.
This is the same.
Yeah.
I mean,
What are we
we're looking
doing?
in a mirror right now.
What
Yeah, I
are
mean,
we
so
doing?
there will be stretches of the game where we move the ball around great, and Perkins and Jimerson and Parker will hit threes,
Yeah.
and we'll look great, and then we'll just abandon it for no reason. We'll
Sure.
just abandon it. So don't worry,
Yeah.
we'll keep you guys in the game no matter how it's going.
Yeah.
I do still think the front court's a problem though, because we don't have a 4. We play 1-5 at a time, and if you've got a 4, or if you've got a 3 and a 4, if you've got multiple forwards who can play, you're gonna get production against us. And I think the size of your front court is what worries me, or the size of your whole roster, honestly, is what worries me.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the other thing, right? Is that we just haven't done a great job of maximizing that talent, right? I think you guys remember enough in 2020 that we were so good because we maximized what Obi was good at, the fast break, passing out of the post, right? Duran really hasn't improved on his post play. And so we just haven't been able to get the most out of it because if you are physical with him and you deny him the ball, it's going to be a long night for him. He just hasn't really I hate to say it so simplistically, and if you said it to his face, I'm sure he'd have something to say, but he just doesn't have that dog in him, that you just when you're a down low post guy, it's gonna get grimy some nights, and he's just not really able to counteract that and be one of the best big men in the country. He's still probably the best big man in the A10, but unfortunately he's the focal point of the team, and I don't know. It just hasn't really gone well this season, just top to bottom, really.
Who's healthy at guard for you guys right now?
Everybody's back. Because that was the thing. Everybody was like, well, just wait till we got healthy. And then we got healthy and we kept losing games against bad teams anyways. So yeah, everybody's back. I mean, it's Kobe Elvis, Malachi Smith, the guys Kobe Bray is the shooter, the lone shooter we have. But Dayton's guards aren't going to beat you. They're just not. And I know that because we're 23 games into the season. They haven't beat anybody 24 games into the season. So I think if you can take Kamara or Holmes out of the game, you can beat Dayton any night. It doesn't matter who you are.
This is just truly impressive how Spider-Man pointing meme this entire conversation has been.
Yeah, it's been a rough year, man. I mean, just as a fan, I had one kid today that was like, I used to love reading Dayton Twitter, but now everybody's just complaining. I'm like, well, oh, you mean you used to like it when we were winning? Like, fucking me too, dude. I was like, what's the matter with you?
He's just reading Twitter and not watching games.
Oh my God. I couldn't remember that, dude. I was like,
speaking of impacting you as a fan, you relocated back to Pittsburgh from Chicago. How has that move impacted your ability to follow UD
in person?
Yeah, I mean it's easier now because it's an hour shorter drive. It's only about 3.5 from my house. It used to be 4.5 plus Chicago traffic, which usually turned into 5. So yeah, it's been good. Like I've been able to easier go to games, and the drive's just a little bit more carefree, and it's hey, speaks for itself, hour shorter. So yeah, it's been cool, man. The one thing I will say that I miss is like I watch games alone a lot more than I used to. I used to have like a crew of buddies that would go to the games, and that's what it's all about, right? Like getting together with your buddies and then watching the games.
So are you going to be there on Friday?
No, this was one of those games, guys, where like if there was juice to it and like it meant something, like I would have called off work a little early and made the trip. But like I am perfectly happy to watch this game on my couch, whatever the result is. It's gonna wipe my hands whenever it's over, and then we can all kind of get on with our Friday night. I got live PD to watch when it's over anyway. So I mean, I watched the whole game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like I have to watch the game, but I think a month ago I would have been, up in arms about the result. And now I've kind of put the season in perspective where I'm like, all right, we're kind of in the month of improvement. Like as long as I think we're improving by the end of the month, like that's all you need to take from it. Right.
So last season we split the series, home team held serve, won both games. Would you be satisfied with that outcome this season, or would anything less than a clean Arch Baron Cup title be a disappointment?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to win the cup, right? Like both times, but I think it's the same answer, right? Like I think if there was more juice to it, I think I would have like a stronger answer. But like you said when we started, the goal now is just to like make sure you finish in the top 4. And, on this day of our Lord, we're both kind of, right there in the balance. So I guess from that perspective, Dayton kind of needs to win these games to hold a tiebreaker. So yeah, it'd be better to sweep SLU because, I mean, for better or worse for listeners, right? Like if you lose to the bottom of the conference, like Rhode Island or Dayton lost to Rhode Island, so I'll just use them as an example. You don't have to go up against them in a tiebreaker for a top 4, right? Dayton and SLU are going to be right next to each other. So it stands to reason that it might come down to that last game where, hey, we're playing for a 4 and whoever loses gets a 5. So I think from that perspective, like, this is a pretty big game, I guess, if you're looking at it from that microscope, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, you mentioned being kind of just apathetic. I think I'm at like the anger stage of the whole thing where it's just everything I'm exhausted.
See, I was there like Thanksgiving, dude. Like I got way out ahead of it, because we came home from the Bahamas without a win. So like that was when I was angry. And then like over the last like 2 months, I've just been able to kind of cool down over it because our season wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, when that happened, it was kind of like, I mean, and we were still, I think at that point, Zach, we maybe had one loss more than you kind of would have wanted at that point, but we were still looking more viable, and we had some Q1 and Q2 opportunities still ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had the Memphis and Providence games. Like we didn't have any of that. Like we don't have a single signature win even to this day. You know what our best win is? I'll play some trivia. What's Dayton's best win on their schedule? Like. It's gonna be a school,
Wyoming?
No, not even close.
Or no, SMU.
No, wasn't them either. You ready for this? This is funny. Fucking Fordham.
Oh, actually, that doesn't surprise me now that you say it.
Their best win right now is at Fordham. Yeah.
You know what our best loss is? Fordham.
No. Is it Boy, it's
No,
not
I
your
mean-
father's Fordham, man.
I mean, we've lost to Auburn and Maryland and some good teams, but yeah, it's definitely not your father's Fordham.
Yeah,
Preposterous.
Maybe your
crazy.
grandfather's. I don't know when they were good.
It's crazy, man. And that's the thing, like scheduling, we talk about how important it is, right? Dayton drops all 3 of their games in the Bahamas. Southern Methodist comes to UD Arena. They're now a Q4 game. They're 217 in the net. Okay. Then they scheduled that neutral game against Wyoming you just referenced. Wyoming is dead last in the Mountain West. They're 197 in the net. So like neither of those games, like we might as well not even play them. They did nothing for us.
It really do be like that sometimes. So
I didn't realize how bad both of those schools had tanked since then.
Yep. The Mountain West is chugging along, but Wyoming is not a part of that train, man.
well, Sully, yeah, man.
Yeah, this has been uplifting.
Yeah. I'm gonna go watch like a documentary on the Hindenburg.
Oh, I'm gonna
just
Murder
to
mystery.
like improve my evening.
Yeah, when I signed up for doing this podcast like 7 years ago, doing Talking Out Loud, it's it's crazy that it's even been that long. But this is what they like don't tell you about, when it's like February and there's like no chance at an at-large and you got 8 games left and you still got to, churn the shit out every week. And so yeah, I'm contractually obligated by ESPN Radio now, so I can't get out of it. But I tried. I tried really hard, but it's like here we are. It's I guess it's maybe an ode as I'm signing off to like people that do this for a living, because we don't get paid and we do it because it's fun. And the people that do get paid, obviously, it's their livelihood. But my God, man, when you do it for fun, it's just like it gets so much less fun when you're in the position that our teams are in, right? Like, and that's what kind of sucks and takes the life out of you a little bit, just in general.
I texted Peter after we lost to VCU because I was out there just saying, some of it was, frustration, and then some of it's legit. And I just go, look, dude, I'm going to go off on my personal account, which obviously I know he appreciated that part of it. But I'm like, dude, no matter what I say on the account or on my account, like we're still doing this show. Like it's I'm not, I just don't want you to feel like I'm like setting up to be like, yeah, we suck. I don't want to do this anymore. See you later. Thanks for all your help.
We also have the advantage where we cover everything that SLU does, right? So even if basketball is in a low point, maybe we look at what the women's program's doing. Maybe our soccer programs have been killing it lately. There's always something positive to kind of keep you at least I don't know.
That's what I would tell anybody who starts one of these podcasts for like A10 or any school, really, dude. Even like when you start, just cover it a little bit, cover the extra sports a little bit, because when they're good, if they're good, it'll always give you something to add content, keep your name in the Twitter space, and
keep your name out there. Well, let me ask you guys this. We'll sign off with this question. Like, do you guys have you gotten the fans that are like saying how blasphemous it is for you to like criticize the team? Do you guys get that kind of chatter or not? Everybody's kind of on the same page.
I think it's interesting because I don't think Pete and I are like overly like on the show we get super critical. So I think among the like 300 to 400 people that view or listen to our show, that cuts through that fan. I think the people that are on Twitter, like we haven't got anything on Twitter, but we're not very like, we're negative in like a game day thread type negativity, but then like after the fact, we kind of have a middleman Dan perspective, no pun intended.
Yeah, thank you.
Pete, I don't know what you got. What your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, occasionally, like Zach threw out a kind of opaque question about like
let's get into that actually
about Ford and not getting the most out of talent, and I don't remember exactly how it was worded, and we got like dozens of replies of people reacting kind of in surprising ways. So occasionally we'll put something out on Twitter and get that, but I think right now we're getting more people who are further out on the ledge than we are, who are like, because we're both like this, we've invested, not we, but like the institution, the boosters have invested a lot in this program compared to where it was pretty recently.
Oh yeah,
and and we've got the highest paid coach in the conference by a good margin, and like we're just not getting that return at all. So that's where we're just kind of at an impasse. Like we both like him personally, we want him to succeed. I think it's the same thing you would say, but it's just the results aren't there.
It's not going anywhere.
The tweet was, so here's an interest, and this was just me being like galaxy brain, like what if, right? So here's an interesting twist on the quote unquote Ford can't coach narrative. What if he's a good coach, but is bringing players in that can't play the style necessary to make his team successful? What if he's putting out the right game plan, but recruiting players who can't execute it? Obviously, I'm just talking shit out here. And I'm like, because again, I said, it can't be as simple as Ford's a bad coach. It cannot be that, because he's obviously made good coaching decisions to get to the point he is in now. So my thing is, and I'm not defending him, I'm not doing anything other than just saying, like, what if the narrative is maybe off a little bit? What if he's a good coach, but he's not a great general manager, which is, again, all encompassing of a college head coach's job. So that was what I said. And we got just absolutely like
hate
just
mail.
Yeah, like even if that's the case, isn't that coaching too? You're picking the players. So I spent the next like 3 hours just linking my follow-up tweet. Like I clarified you. But
you
he's
care.
Like,
I mean, I'll give you that, man. Like you care what your opinion is in the streets. That goes a long way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want like again, like I'm not a like basketball mind, like, but I like to think outside the box, and it's interesting that he had some of his best years with a certain type of player, and then he overachieved with a certain type of player, or not overachieved, but he had good results with a certain type of player. And now you have the most talented team he's ever had with a bunch of guys that maybe aren't that same type of player, and they're just absolutely just underachieving. So I really don't get it.
Yeah. I hear you loud and clear, man.
Anyway, Sully, man, I would say it's going to be fun Friday night, but I don't know.
It's going to be a good old-fashioned slugfest. I mean, we both have games in between, which I guess will kind of set the tone to a degree. I think people will have like a renewed optimism about whether Dayton can win this game if they go to Richmond and they beat VCU on Tuesday. Not for nothing, but they kind of could use that win if we're going to keep talking about regular season title, which is certainly still in reach for both of us, albeit a little bit out in the distance. So, from that perspective, it does have a little bit of juice. I think that whoever loses this game will be completely out of the conference title conversation, right? Because SLU is already at 3. They're 7-3. We're 7-4. So I guess maybe more so for us, right? Like we dropped to 7-5, we can forget about it. But I don't know. I mean, even SLU, like if they were to, drop the next 2 games this week, go to 7-5, Dayton owns the tiebreaker. It could swing the balance for SLU as well. So for all you people that care about the regular season conference title, I'm not one of them, but it could be that. It could be important for that reason.
We got to beat Rhode Island Tuesday, though.
Yeah. Archie Miller, baby. He knows how to coach against T. Ford. He knows all too well.
All right, Sully. Well, we're gonna let you go. Thanks for hopping on the show, and have a good week up until Friday.
Yeah, always a pleasure, fellas.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Thanks again to Dan Sullivan for joining the show. Pete, let's put a bow on our unsuccessful A10 survivor pool.
Yeah, 2022, 2023, we tried. Our last pick was for the pod because you and I went out on successive weeks before it. And we had Richmond over St. Bonaventure on February 1st. we took the L. All of a sudden, Bonaventure, as we picked against them twice in a week, decided to start winning on the road for the first time of the season. So, Zach, it was fun while it lasted. Our entries all went down in consecutive weeks. And to the people still alive in this thing, it is 100% pure luck. It's not that they're good. They don't know anything. Logic, reason, historical performance, matchups, all out the window. It's just garbage this season.
It's horrible.
Let's go around on that note. Let's go around.
I think every year I put A10 Schadenfreude on our titles. Tuesday the 31st, VCU squeaks out a win against Davidson 61-59. Dayton needs overtime to beat Loyola 85-81. Wednesday the 1st, Bonaventure beats Richmond, as we mentioned, 66-62. St. Joe 64, Rhode Island 50. George Mason 70, UMass 59, another sicko score. LaSalle 75, George Washington 64. Saturday the 4th, 93 for Davidson, UMass 78. Duquesne 93, George Washington 67. Loyola, Pete, assistant coach Peter Hale for Loyola 69-61 over George Mason. This next game, St. Bonaventure 68, Dayton 59. All I got to say about this one is sheesh.
Yeah, that's a hard gym to win in when Bonaventure's playing well. And I don't know what it is, but this team in the last 2 weeks has just suddenly figured things out.
Venning was outstanding in this one for Bonaventure, and the atmosphere was electric. You had all the townies getting rowdy up there in Olean. It was a wild night.
Yeah, all the snowmobiles lined up around the gym, parked outside the gym.
You mean the elementary school? Yes,
the gym that looks like an elementary school built in the 50s. Yeah.
Sunday the 5th, LaSalle beats St. Joe's. The Gola boys were excited about that one, 73-65. And then Richmond bringing Fordham back down to earth, 68-58. Pete, run us down the Atlantic 10 standings as
VCU
if they matter.
Yeah, let's just do it anyway. VCU is now alone in first at 9-2. Like SLU and Dayton fans didn't think they could. SLU is technically in second right now at 7-3, game and a half behind Dayton, and Bonaventure tied in third at 7-4. Fordham is just outside that top 4 cut line at 6-4. We've got Duquesne and GW tied behind them at 500, 5-5 apiece. George Mason smack in the middle of the conference at 5-6. They're tied with Richmond and St. Joe's at that record, though, so things start getting crowded here. LaSalle and Rhode Island are both 4-6. UMass and Davidson tied second from the bottom at 4-7, and Loyola still bringing up the rear at 2-8, but they are finally starting to win a couple.
Next up, for the Billikens, obviously, as we previewed, Rhode Island on the 7th and Dayton on the 10th. Pete, trivia question of the week. What was our question for last week? The answer, and then who got it first?
Yeah, so last week's question, SLU played Fordham exactly one time before joining the A10 back in 1972. Where was this game held? None other than Madison Square Garden. SLU won this game 75-71. And congrats to Alma Man on Billikens.com for being the first to get that one. I love his profile picture. Patton Oswalt in Big Fan is the picture he goes with. I think it's perfect.
I don't think I've ever said this about that movie. But I actually saw the previews of that movie, and I actually got super excited about it because it's like a indie sports related, and I just never watched it because I was afraid it was gonna suck.
I am a huge Patton Oswalt fan. I've loved his stand-up forever, and I really like it. It's dark. It's like I
started watching it and I turned it off.
For people who are like it's not a conventional sports movie by any means. It's pretty dark, but I think it's worth a watch. I like it quite a bit.
This week's trivia question: Dwayne Evans participated in an all-star game in 2014. put on by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. He played alongside Javante Reddick and Halil Kanasevich. Who sponsored that game?
That's an obscure question right there.
It's not. Unfortunately, it's not difficult to find. We're depending on you to what do you always say, Pete?
Honor code.
Honor code, yes. But yeah, go ahead and see if you don't remember that one. Women's basketball, Pete, 68-56 win versus George Mason. Chaffetz was packed for this one.
Yeah, we had almost 7,600 screaming fans for Education Day, and Brooke Flowers emerged as the star of this one. Zach, give us a rundown of the chaotic vibes in the arena, and for those who might not know what Education Day is.
Oh my goodness. So Education Day, I don't exactly know what they do anymore, but I feel like they used to do like educational stuff before the game, but I think that's changed a little bit. But man, I mean, like I walked in and honestly, they thought they told, like, the ushers were like talking to me like I'm an idiot. Like, well, you have to sit in a certain spot. I'm like, I'll figure it out. It's fine. Like, whatever.
They're like, adult man by yourself. You got to sit in a certain area.
Yeah, no. But no, I mean, honestly, like it was wild because every time the DJ would play a song, that it was always like a viral dance or something. Like Soulja Boy was played. Obviously the song for the Gritty was played. Whip and Nene was played. I swear to God, it was like God herself issued commands of these children to sing along and dance. I've never seen it was scary. Like,
So
I mean, if these were adults, we're talking Jonestown. Like that's how weird. I turned around and two teachers were behind me. I made eye contact. She looked at me like, "What?" I go, "This is insane." She goes, "Who are you telling?"
Yeah.
Like, my God.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's field trip vibes, it's like, this is they're out of the classroom, but they're on school's watch. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
they're
going crazy.
I don't know how more kids don't get lost during this event.
Oh man. Yeah.
I
have two to keep track of and I lose them all the time.
I do know that I don't know if I would have liked this event as a kid, being a Billiken fan. I just remember back when I was like in like Cub Scouts, for whatever stupid reason I was in Cub Scouts. Like we did a Billiken game and I had to sit up in like the 200 level, like, and didn't get to hang out with my uncle during the game. I was kind of pissed off about it.
Yeah.
And I think we probably left early or something. Like, and I know a bunch of the schools did leave early. So I think I would have hated this event, honestly. I don't know
So
about
for you,
you.
it was all off, right? Like the experience was all off. I think as a grade school student, I would have been cool with it because I wasn't like, it was only late 7th, 8th grade that I started really going regularly.
Yeah.
So I think, at their age, looking around at all the young kids, like, dancing during every timeout, that they would pan the camera up to the crowd. It seemed like they were young enough to where it was like, it just didn't matter. They're just having fun. It beats sitting in a classroom, for a couple hours.
Billikens got out to a 14-4 first quarter lead. Mason chipped away and got its only lead of the game, 23-22 during the second. I mean, you could say Mason chipped away, but man, I don't want to be too harsh on her here, but McMakin let them come back in this game. She just took, I think it was 5 straight possessions. She took a shot. And it was just like, in the second quarter, she just, I don't know. I don't understand it. I mean, clearly it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, she's a veteran player and this is how she's used to playing. And, it just, I think it's taken time. And I think game in and game out, she has kind of backed off, Pete.
Yeah. I think when you're going to live and die and with her as the primary shooter, the primary scorer on this team. That's just going to happen sometimes. You're going to ride her hot hand to wins, and you're going to try and overcome her slumps other times. I think that's just always how it's. I mean, you're right. You don't teach an old dog new tricks, but the thing that kills me about her is the shot selection.
Yes.
I don't mind her taking the volume of shots she does, but you don't need to be shooting leaners with 22 seconds left in the shot clock. Like, get good shots. Just take good shots. You know, like, we know you can score. Take good shots. The good news is SLU went up 2 into halftime. And then, you know, even though Mason threatened a few times in the second half, SLU was able to hang on. This game, though, Zach, was all about Brooke Flowers in the end.
Yeah. 11 points, 18 rebounds, 11 blocks for the first triple-double in program history. Felt like it had to have, it was inevitable. It was like the Thanos of statistical outputs. It was inevitable.
So when I looked at going into the last couple minutes, she only had 5 points.
Well, no, I meant just in her career, but yes.
Sure. Yeah, right. That she someday would do it with blocks as the third statistical category. She only had 5 points late, and I remember thinking, like, oh man, it's a shame she couldn't score today, because, you know, maybe she could have had a triple double here. And then she scored the one that gave her 7. And it looked natural in the run of play. And then it became immediately clear, we're going to get her 2 more looks. And we're going to try and get her this thing. Like they willed it after that. So it's kind of funny. Like, I guess when it's points, right, your team can really scheme to make sure you get those. But when you're chasing another statistical category, that's a lot harder to do. If she's sitting on like 8 blocks or 8 rebounds or 8 assists or something like that, it's a lot harder to actually get that triple double. You don't want to wind up with I remember Ricky Davis when he was on, was it the Pacers or the Bulls at the time?
Oh God.
And he threw himself a rebound.
No, yeah.
Like off an uncontested rim, like the wrong one, like just to get himself the triple double. So you don't wind up in that situation. When it's scoring, though, you can actually make it happen. But they were clearly on a mission. 11, by the way, is a new single game blocks record for SLU. Flowers and Arlene Lampy shared the previous record of 9. It's the most by a D1 player this season. And then in this game, she also passed the season record for blocks in a game with 96, passing 90. So she passed it by a lot in one game.
I saw your note that it was the single game blocks record. And then I was like, oh man, I tweeted out that she just passed the season record for blocks. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I had my headphone, like my AirPods in with no music, just to drown out a little bit of the like ear shattering children. Right. And so I was like, oh shoot, did I get that wrong? No, she's just crushing all the records.
Yeah. And she's going to Hassan French this one and like put it out of reach for a while. I mean, she's going to do that with the season block number. She's going to do it with the career block number, which she already had coming into this year. And then her 18 rebounds in this game were a high mark for a SLU player this season, but only the second most in this game, because Nalani Kaija from George Mason had 22 rebounds to go with her 13 points and 3 blocks. And then Flowers did all this despite having a bit of foul trouble. Ended up with
paging Travis Ford.
Yeah, they could still produce.
No, yeah, and the one she had 2 back-to-back blocks. The one that set the record was just a domineering block. And then the one she followed it up with was the same exact block. 2 hands, roofed her. It was just, she's incredible. I want to see, I wonder if she will attempt to play pro somewhere.
That's a good question. I've been thinking about that too. You know, we've talked about her physicality or lack thereof. But I think she's playing the best ball of her career right now. I think she's playing, and I think the mandate that she was given by Coach Tillett to score more has really changed her whole demeanor. She's always been good for rebounds and blocks, right? But it's just she's taken it to another level right now, and it's so nice to see this in her final year. I think she's really breaking out in a big way. She ended up with 22 on 8 of 25 shooting, 6 rebounds, 5 turnovers. Martinez, she's going to fill out the stat sheet, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, and just 2 turnovers, but she also battled foul trouble. The rest of the rotation was fine. Nicastro had 8 and 6, which was nice. But quieter games out of all of them. Really, they shot 3 of 19 from 3. So that's an area of major concern. If every game, if they shoot better, it's everything's different, right? I mean, they'd be blowing teams out. But that's just how it goes when you shoot that way. Zach, any last notes on this Mason game from someone who was in the house besides it was loud?
No, it was it was a good game. I thought the Billikens handled it for most of it. It was just that stretch in that second quarter where McMakin took some ill-advised shots and allowed Mason back in the game. I like to see that McMakin went from 25 shots in this one to 19 against Bonaventure.
Yeah, you called this one a good character win, right? Like Bonaventure's at the bottom of the conference.
They're awful.
They're awful. They went through a coaching change and you win by 14 and it was pretty close for a while. So it's 75-61 and this was just on Sunday the 5th. So yeah, it's close for a while. I think they're up 1 at the end of the first quarter, 2 at halftime, but they really took care of business down the stretch, held Bonaventure to just 9 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I got to watch most of this one. Again, Flowers, huge game, 13 and 12 with 3 blocks, sorry. McMakin's, again, like I said, 6 of 19 shooting, 17 points. Julia was fine in this one. She just did not have the statistics to back it up.
9 turnovers and just 4 points, but she did manage to snag 10 rebounds, hand out 4 assists, and get 4 steals. So she's so active. I think that a lot of her turnovers come from just trying to do too much. I don't know. I unfortunately, not having been able to see this one, I don't know if that's the case here or not.
Yeah, I think sometimes she just gets a little out of control too.
Yeah. She plays faster than everybody else.
Yeah, she really does. It's super weird because and women's basketball is kind of weird in a lot of ways because it's not, there's a lot of different form to how they do things. So a lot of it can look out of control or maybe what's the word? Fundamentally unsound. But I mean, that's just women's basketball. Peyton Kennedy, she's been nice, man.
16 and 9 off the bench. I think she's kind of accepted this the 6th position role on this roster. She seems to wear it well and produce in that backup forward spot. SLU was plus 18 rebounding with Flowers, Kennedy, and Martinez just cleaning up the glass in this game.
Kylie Bess was phenomenal and probably her biggest role of the season coming off of injury. 3 of 4 from the 3-point line, 3 rebounds, total 9 points. That is something that this team has sorely missed.
So has she just been completely unavailable? Yeah. Is that's what? Okay.
I think she played a little against Mason maybe, or the game before that, but I'm not totally sure.
I mean, this is if she can come in and inhabit her old role as a 3-point shooter, I think that's what a key difference maker that is for this team. Like such a poor shooting team. If you can have that specialist, that sniper come in and play 20 minutes a game and get you some threes and honestly, and keep defenses honest, because if the way SLU's been shooting all season, there's no reason for teams to do anything but pack it in against them. Just try and get to McMakin a little bit. So if she's healthy and ready to go now, look out. These the first points of the season, and what a difference that could be.
Yeah, only 8 minutes against Ball State, and I think she only had maybe a couple minutes here and there. This is weird. This is what happens when you go down like a rabbit hole. Real quick, what's going on with Camry Clegg?
She got hurt.
Okay,
Yeah.
because she's not. I don't even know if she's even on this roster anymore.
That would be weird. That's also an unfortunate thing for us to notice while we're recording. Well, yeah, she's listed on the roster.
Well, no, but like if you go into the stats, she's
she's not on there.
No, she's unclickable.
Right. Well, honestly, that has been a weird glitch on the website all season long. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, she did get
Thunderman
hurt.
fix it.
She got hurt. She got hurt a couple games ago. I still don't know what her status is. But yeah, if they're bringing out Kylie Bess as kind of like the late season edition here, that could be the secret weapon. I mean, like she can shoot it. We know that. Bonaventure fouled a lot in this game to try and get back in it, but SLU was 90% from the line. If only they could shoot better from the field. The way that they do from the line, this one would have been a complete laugher, but it's good that they took care of business on the road in a tough place to play regardless.
Yep. The Women's Arch Baron Cup on the 8th, the second round, at Dayton. Billikens I believe they took the first one. Yeah. And then Saturday, the 11th versus George Washington. A10 standings, Rhode Island leads the conference at 10-0, followed by UMass at 9-1. Fordham and George Washington sit at 8-3. LaSalle 5-4. St. Joe's and SLU 5-5. Davidson 4-4. Duquesne 5-6. VCU 4-6. Richmond 3-5. George Mason 4-7. Dayton 3-7. Loyola Chicago 1-9. St. Bonaventure 1-10. Of course, that Loyola Chicago lone conference win was against the Billikens. Pete, tell us about track and field. Couple of records fell.
They ran up at the Iowa State Classic in Ames on this weekend, February 4th. One of those records was Toby Gillen. We joked we should go. John Bell should just go ahead and tweet this every week now. He broke his own record in the mile again. This time he ran a 4:02:33, inching closer to that 4-minute mile. So nice work, Toby. Getting it done up in Ames. Harrison Martinenko broke the SLU 1,000-meter record with a time of 2:26:32. And then Luke Schaefer has the new school record in the 600 yards. Not an event they run a lot, but he had a time of 1:15:33. The women didn't set any school records at the event, but they did have the top 3 finisher in that 600-yard event. And then Caroline Tarpey won the pole vault. Next up, they've got the David Henry Valentine Invitational at Boston University on February 10th and 11th.
Heading over to men's tennis season is now underway. One against St. Francis and twice against Alcorn State. They beat Austin P 5-2. SLU swept the doubles to start the day, but won 5 of 6 singles matches to take the win. 3 freshmen picked up wins for SLU. It's an unusual roster this season with 1 senior, 4 juniors, 5 freshmen, but the freshmen appear to be pretty good. 4-3 win over Chicago State. Record stands at 5-0. I mean, I'll take that.
Sure.
Next up, February 8th and 11th, Quincy and Oral Roberts, respectively. Women beat Alcorn State twice to start the season, dropped a 4-3 decision to Chicago State. Tennis coach was happy with doubles, but not with singles. That's where they struggled. 7-0 win versus Lindenwood on the 5th. They are 3-1 to start the season. Big time international roster. It's kind of how SLU's been doing it for a long time. I know when we were talking about, who they might get to replace Zich. I know there were people that were tennis players back in the day that had applied and given their vision. And a lot of people think that we maybe rely a little too heavily on the foreign players and not maybe grab the better American players that aren't getting looks. That apparently the better American players are available. The American players that are available to go to college are better than the foreign players that are available for college. Next up for the women, February 10th versus IUPUI, February 12th versus Oral Roberts. Softball released their schedule for the 2023 season. 52 games, 21 at home. Tournaments at DePaul, Utah Tech, and Lipscomb. first home game as part of the Billiken round robin with NIU and Bradley. And by then, they will have played 17 games already. In addition to a few A10 home series, they also have single home games against Kentucky, SIU Carbondale, and home with Lindenwood. Pete, any last thoughts on this marathon of an episode we just put together?
My last thoughts are that I hope there's something positive for this men's basketball season, that they can kind of get back on track. I think beating Dayton would be great. I think that would really help me feel better about where things are. Beating Dayton twice, I think, would be huge for both fan bases. Honestly, it would be huge for Dayton because it would be catastrophic, and it would be at least something redeeming for us. But I really like the way the women's basketball program is trending right now. I like the way that they're playing lately. So they're, like we said when we talked to Sully, there are always positive things to look at when you zoom out, look at the athletic program as a whole.
Yep. That wraps up the week in Billiken Athletics. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP, and on Instagram at Midtown Mad Pod. Peter, I agree. It's going to be a interesting week. I feel like I've harped on subscribing and reviews for 2.5 years. So just as always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.